Hiro Nakamoto, a curious 15-year-old, found himself at his grandparents' traditional Japanese home in Kyoto, Japan, on a sunny weekend in July 1971. Feeling adventurous, he decided to explore their attic, a treasure trove of ancient and intriguing items collected over generations. Amongst these relics, Hiro's attention was captured by an old small wooden box, elegantly crafted, yet locked shut. Using a rusty tool he found amidst the attic's contents, Hiro managed to pry open the box's hinge. The very moment the box creaked open, Hiro's grandfather, Masahiro Nakamoto, a stern but wise man in his late 70s, burst into the attic. In a mix of concern and anger, he shouted in Japanese, admonishing Hiro for his recklessness. As they argued, a small, intricately made Japanese doll fell out of the box and onto the dusty attic floor. Masahiro, with a look of deep fear in his eyes, hastily scooped up the doll and placed it back into the box. Without a word, he rushed downstairs, returning moments later with a roll of heavy-duty tape. He meticulously wrapped the box, ensuring it was sealed tight. Later that evening, as the summer sun set and cast long shadows in the Nakamoto living room, Masahiro sat Hiro down. He began to narrate the chilling history of the doll, a tale that had been passed down in his family for generations. The story traced back to a hot, humid summer in 1906, in the small village of Hakodate, on Hokkaido Island. Masahiro, then a 9-year-old boy, remembered it vividly. It was a time of mystery and fear, beginning with the disappearance of a young girl from the village in early June. Despite exhaustive searches by the villagers, no trace of her was found. As the summer progressed, another girl disappeared, sparking widespread panic. Whispers of an Akuma, a demon doll, began to circulate among the terrified villagers. The once vibrant summer festivals were cancelled, and a curfew was imposed, cloaking the village in a blanket of fear and suspicion. In a desperate bid for answers, the village elders sent for a special investigator from Tokyo. By the time he arrived in late July, 6 girls, all under 14, had mysteriously vanished. The investigator, a sharp-eyed, middle-aged man named Kaito Suzuki, meticulously interviewed every household, including Masahiro's family, who were well-respected persimmon farmers in the village. Despite Kaito's month-long investigation, no leads or suspects emerged. Life in the village slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the shadow of the unsolved disappearances lingered. The terrifying truth came to light one fateful Sunday morning in September. Masahiro, following his mother's instructions, went to the village temple to offer prayers and donations. The temple, usually a hub of activity, was eerily silent and deserted. As he entered, a foul stench assaulted his senses. Pushing forward, he heard a rustling sound from beneath the tatami mats. Bracing himself, he lifted a mat, revealing a grotesque sight. The stitched-together body parts of different young girls, forming a single macabre figure. Atop this horrifying assembly sat the Akuma Doll, its eyes seemingly following Masahiro's every move. Panicked, Masahiro ran back to his house, his heart pounding in his chest. He recounted the ghastly scene to his parents. His father, Takeshi Nakamoto, immediately rallied the villagers, and they stormed the temple, only to find the evidence mysteriously vanished. Years later, as an old woman on her deathbed, the village's eldest resident entrusted Masahiro with the guardianship of the Akuma Doll, believed to be the cause of the tragedies. Masahiro, who had since taken over the family's persimmon farm, reluctantly accepted this duty. Now Hiro, sitting across from his grandfather in the dimly lit room, listened in horror. Masahiro concluded his tale with a stern warning to Hiro to never seek out the doll again. Hiro, deeply affected by the story, vowed to uphold his grandfather's wishes. Years passed, and Hiro became the caretaker of the doll after Masahiro's passing. He kept its existence a secret, locked away in an undisclosed location. The only evidence of its existence is a single photograph, released by Hiro, which has since become infamous in Japanese folklore and media. For more spine-chilling stories, Hiro has appeared on numerous television shows, recounting the eerie legacy of the Akuma Doll and his family's role in its safeguarding. On August 13th, 1984 in Blackfoot, Idaho, 2 best friends who were both 12 years old ventured into an old abandoned house that was close to the farm they both lived on. When they didn't return home that night, their families and neighbors went searching for them. One of them was found 16 hours later in the abandoned house, in the dark, dirt-floored basement. He was found standing up, facing the wall, whispering something incomprehensible over and over again. His hair had turned white, and he would not speak when spoken to. For many years after, he never uttered a word. His parents eventually sent him to live in an assisted living center for youth. He finally spoke one morning, 10 years later, telling the terrifying story of what happened in that basement to the nurses at the assisted living center. Any names used in this story have been changed at the family's request. Ryan and I had been best friends since kindergarten. He was born and raised on the farm we lived on, but my family moved into the area when I was 4 years old. We were both the same age, so it was inevitable we'd become good friends. We didn't start things off right, though. I remember punching him in the face the first time I met him. He'd taken something of my sister's and refused to give it back, which led to me giving him a bloody lip. He went home crying to his mom. Then we became the best of friends until the incident. That day started out like so many other countless summer days. We literally lived 20 yards from each other, so we'd eat breakfast, then meet outside in the backyard to decide what we were going to do that day. It never crossed our young minds that something far more sinister was lurking in the dark, in the basement of one of those abandoned houses. I remember meeting Ryan outside fairly early that day, I'd say around 8 a.m. I asked him what he wanted to do, and he said, "Let's go down to one of the streams and catch some frogs." Of course, I wholeheartedly agreed, so off we went. On the way to the stream, though, we'd have to walk past one of the abandoned houses. This one in particular had always given us the creeps, and we'd always avoided it like the plague. As we were walking down the dirt path, talking about random things, we started walking past the abandoned house when suddenly we heard the voice of a little girl saying, help me, I'm trapped down here in the basement. Please help me." Ryan and I immediately froze in place, looking at each other with our mouths wide open. Neither one of us could believe what we just heard. We stood there for a bit before the girl spoke again, saying, "Help me, please help me." I was the first one to speak up and said, "What if it really is a little girl trapped down there? What else could it be?" "I don't know, man. I don't like it. We know everyone around here, and she doesn't sound like anyone we know. What would a little girl her age be doing down in the basement of that house anyway?" responded Ryan. "True, but we can't just do nothing. Let's take a quick look and we can always leave to go get help." I said, "Fine, man, but I don't like it and don't think we should be doing this," said Ryan. We both mustered up what little courage we had and started slowly creeping over to the house, tiptoeing as we went. As we got within touching distance of the abandoned house, we again heard the little girl. "Are you coming? Please come help me." I'll never forget the shiver of fear that shot up my back. The hairs on my arms were like needles standing straight up. The front door was all but gone, so we walked up the steps and stuck our heads inside and looked around. The place smelled horrible. It's a smell that's never left my nose. As we stood there in the doorway, the girl again spoke. This time her voice was calmer than before and didn't seem right. "I know you're there. Come help me. I'm down here." That was it for me, as I was about to turn around and leave and say to Ryan, "Let's go." He suddenly jumped up and ran for the stairs that led to the basement. I yelled at him, "Ryan, come back. What are you doing?" He didn't stop and quickly ran down into the basement. At this point, I was shaking bad with fear, and my knees were wobbling uncontrollably. I thought I was going to faint or fall over. I stood there thinking about what I should do. I knew I couldn't turn and leave my best friend there, but I was also the most scared I've ever been in my life. I made the decision to go into the basement to get my friend. No matter how scared I was, he was like my brother. As I slowly walked inside the house, the wooden floors creaked and moaned as I headed towards the stairs that led to the dark basement. When I got to the top of the stairs, I took a deep breath and slowly started stepping down each step. As I proceeded down the stairs, I called out Ryan's name in a low voice, but he didn't answer. I stopped on the last step before having to turn the corner. At that point, I was shaking so bad I was worried I might urinate my pants. I noticed as I was walking down the stairs, the horrid smell got worse and worse the closer I got to the bottom. I took another deep breath to try and relax myself, and right as I was about to turn the corner, I heard a crunching noise. This made me pause and think, What could that be? As I slowly turned the corner, I could see the basement was very dark and hard to see anything. The only light was a tiny sliver coming through the ceiling between the floorboards up above. I was about to take another step forward when something on the ceiling made me stop dead in my tracks. I looked up in utter horror at a large black creature. It was holding Ryan's lifeless, bloodied body. I could see blood as it dripped from the creature's mouth. I didn't have time to think as I screamed out Ryan's name. The creature looked over and hissed at me, then suddenly turned and moved swiftly across the ceiling over to the corner of the basement. The next thing I remember was waking up, staring at the wall and someone shaking me as they said my name. I tried speaking, but nothing came out. Until today, it was like I was looking through a mask. It was like being trapped inside of my own body. In my mind, I was shouting, but no words would come out. Suddenly this morning, when I woke up, everything was back to normal. I could speak, and my eyes seemed normal. It wasn't like looking through a mask anymore. I remember over the years, people around me talking about how they searched for Ryan for months, but could never find him. No one ever mentioned the hole in the basement, and I'm not sure if the house is still even there. When I get out of this place, I'm planning on going back to search for my friend, and I won't stop until I find him.